Chapter 2A, Dwarf Woodlands. Protected by his armor, Ven hurtled through the ocean between atop his Keyblade glider. Still no sign of Terra. Where could he have gone? Ven could see a radiant world in the distance with what appeared to be tiny fragments of stars afloat in it. A forest, a field of flowers, and a hut? Ven sent his Keyblade racing toward it. He landed on a craggy mountain, but farther ahead he could make out a dense wooded area. It was a bit exciting to visit a world he'd never seen before. The warmth of the air was different, the scent was new, and even the strength of the light shining down wasn't the same. He was seeing everything for the first time. Ven recalled the view of the stars from the world he trained on. Terra had said that each one of those little lights was a world, or maybe only his world was special, and all the others weren't much different from the one he was on now. There's so much I want to know, thought Ven. He wanted to learn about all the different kinds of worlds. Taking in the sights as he descended the mountain path, Ven sensed someone coming and peeked down from the ledge. 7 dwarfs were marching along, each wearing a different color and shouldering a pickaxe. They were all keeping in perfect step with each other as they passed by below him. Well, except the one at the end, who seemed a little off rhythm. Once the 7 had entered a cave a slight distance away, Ven jumped down from the precipice and ran after them. This was the world of the dwarfs, the dwarf woodlands. Ven entered the mineshaft illuminated by the glow of sporadically placed lanterns. Gemstones glittered from the rugged walls, and the dwarfs were swinging their pickaxe to carve them out. When Ven approached, a dwarf wearing sunglasses known as Doc turned around. "Huh? Who are you?" "I'm Ventus. Call me Ven." As Ven tried to introduce himself with a smile on his face, another, much less pleasant dwarf called Grumpy cried out, "A diamond thief! Take cover, you fools!" The dwarfs broke into a run, fleeing from Ven and concealing themselves behind stones. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you." At a loss, Ven scratched his cheek. From behind his shoulder, a fat dwarf, Happy, poked his face out. "You didn't? You mean you're not here for our diamonds?" Next was a dwarf with a drowsy look on his face, Sleepy. "That's not nice, treating me like I'm some kind of bad guy. I'm just trying to find a friend. His name is Terra. He's dressed kinda like me, but yay tall." "Sounds like a tall tale to me. Go on, get!" Ven desperately tried to explain, thinking that they would understand if they knew the details, but Grumpy stopped him short. "We don't know any Terra," replied the pink-cheeked bashful. Letting out a small sigh of frustration, Ven asked, "Please, could you come over here? I just want to talk." "Don't fall for it. Stay where you are," Grumpy called out once again. "No choice, huh? All right, then we'll do this the hard way." Ven dashed toward the dwarfs. Nearly the same time, Terra touched down in the dwarf woodlands inside a gloomy castle some distance from Ventus's location. This was the second world Terra had visited. As he searched the surroundings he had landed in, he heard an unfamiliar voice. He concealed himself behind a pillar and tried to find the source. "Slave in the magic mirror, come from the farthest space. Through wind and darkness I summon thee. Speak!" A woman wearing a long black cloak with a crown on her head, the queen, lifted both hands skyward before a large mirror, as if to gaze upon her entire self. A mysterious black flame roared within the mirror. "Let me see thy face." At the queen's words, a giant mask-like visage, the magic mirror, appeared within the looking glass. "What wouldst thou know, my queen?" An unnerving, unearthly voice resounded from the mirror. "Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" the queen asked the magic mirror. "Famed is thy beauty, your majesty, but hold, a lovely maid I see. Rags cannot hide her gentle grace. Alas, she is more fair than thee." "Alas for her! Reveal her name." "Lips red as the rose, hair black as ebony, skin white as snow." The queen's eyes flared at the description from the magic mirror. She hissed a name, "Snow White." "The heart of Snow White doth shine bright. Beware, my queen, a heart of light." The magic mirror intoned, further praising the girl, and disappeared. A maiden with a heart filled with light. Was this Snow White another princess of heart? Terra's brows furrowed as he recalled his own actions on the first world. Still, he had to do what he must now to make amends. If Snow White was one of them, then Master Xehanort could have come to this world in pursuit of her. Terra stepped out from the shadow of the pillar and approached the queen. "Who goes there?" The queen turned around to face Terra. "My name is Terra. I'm looking for a man named Xehanort. Master Xehanort. I thought maybe you might have seen him." "That name is of no consequence to me." "I see. Sorry to bother you." When Terra turned away, the queen addressed him from behind. "Wait. Ah, yes. I have a task for you. If you succeed, I will ask the mirror where you might find this Master Xehanort." Terra faced her again, and the queen gazed intently at him with an unpleasant smile on her lips. "And the mirror will know?" Terra asked. "Do you dare question me?" the queen snapped. If her request didn't sit well with him, then he just wouldn't follow through on it. "What is the task?" he prompted. "There is a young maiden who resides in this castle. Her name is Snow White. Kill her, and to make doubly sure you do not fail, bring back her heart. In this." The queen handed a small box to Terra. "Her heart? You mean her soul? What I demand is her life. I have no interest in something so insubstantial as a soul." Insubstantial? Then what was certain? Thinking for a moment, Terra ran up against a fundamental doubt and asked another question. "What did this maiden do to you?" "That is no concern of yours. Now heed my words. My radiance is all the light this kingdom needs." Terra found it hard to believe there was any radiance in this lady, but for now the mirror's description of this light-filled Snow White had piqued his interest. He hadn't the slightest intention of retrieving her heart as the queen asked. As it stood, the probability of Snow White being a princess of heart was strong, so it would be best to meet with her. "Where can I find her?" "Outside the castle there is a glade of wildflowers. You are dismissed. Now go and seek her there." "Got it." A malevolent grin appeared on the queen's face behind Terra as he walked away. Exiting the mirror's chamber, Terra dashed through the dimly lit castle. It was crawling with unversed. Why had so many of them appeared in this world? Terra made his way forward, cutting down the unversed as he went. Upon emerging from the cellar into the courtyard, and then leaving the castle grounds, he found a plain so beautiful that the dark confines of the castle seemed like a dream. Amid the flowers in full bloom and the twittering birds was a young woman gathering flowers all alone. Lips red as the rose, hair black as ebony, skin white as snow. This had to be Snow White. She turned around as Terra approached. "Oh, hello. Who are you?" she asked with a smile and not a hint of fear. "Aren't you startled?" "Should I be?" Terra could sense a pure radiance coming from Snow White where she cradled her flowers, her head inclined to one side. She really must be one of the princesses of heart. "Is something the matter?" "Does the name Master Xehanort mean anything to you?" "Why, no. I don't think I've ever heard that name," Snow White answered. Now what? So Master Xehanort hadn't come here yet. Terra was puzzling over what he should do next when his train of thought was cut short by the sudden appearance of an uncanny presence nearby. "Unversed!" Terra shouted, summoning the Keyblade to his hand. Eek! Frightened, Snow White ran off in the opposite direction of the castle. "Hey, wait! Don't go in there alone!" Terra tried to go after her, but an unversed blocked his path. "Out of my way!" he shouted, bringing down his Keyblade. The unversed fell with a single blow, but several more came to take its place, preventing him from getting by. Terra swung his Keyblade again and again. After managing to find all 7 of the dwarfs, Ven pled his case. "Come on, I'm telling you, I'm no thief." "Ha! That's what they all say. Well, we're on to ya," Grumpy retorted. While one of the dwarfs looked at Ven with sympathy, the majority, especially Grumpy, didn't appear inclined to believe him. "Fine, I get it. You want me to leave? I'll leave." Disappointed, Ven trudged toward the exit of the mine. These were the first inhabitants of another world he'd never met, and yet, Hey, these guys probably aren't the only ones who live here, right? Ven stopped and turned back to face the dwarfs. Oh, but can you tell me where I can find some other people around here? There's a castle behind the the forest. Got it. Well, thanks. Doc's willingness to answer him in spite of everything brought a smile to Ven's face, so he expressed his gratitude and left the mine behind. While the dwarfs didn't seem like bad people, he wasn't going to have an easy time convincing them he wasn't a thief. Coming out of the craggy mountain where he'd first landed, Ven headed for the forest. But... Whoa, what? His path was blocked by creatures he'd never seen before. The Unversed. When they leaped to attack, Ven met them with this keyblade in all of his frustration at the dwarfs' false accusations. Not today! As he rushed over the rocky terrain, taking out Unversed as he went, Ven came upon a lone hut nestled in the woods. Maybe this is where those dwarfs live. Ven was about to peek through the window and see what was inside when he heard a girl scream. Eek! It came from the forest beyond the hut. Over there! Ven dashed into the trees. Unlike the well-lit woodlands from before, the sunlight didn't reach this dim, humid place beneath the exceptionally tall and densely growing trees. Ven spotted a girl hunched over and crying, and he ran up to her. What's wrong? These horrible trees! They tried to grab me! It's okay. You were probably just saying things. It happens to all of us when we're afraid. Ven placed a hand on her shoulder as he cheered her up. Aqua had once told him something similar. The girl finally lifted her head. She was lovely, with white skin, red lips, and black hair. Oh, thank you. I feel quite better now. I'm sure I'll get going somehow, but I do need a place to sleep at night. Would you know anywhere I might? Well, I saw a house just up ahead. Come on, I'll take you there. Ven extended his hand to her, and she slowly got to her feet. Oh, I'm Ventus. Ven for short. Thank you, Ven. My name's Snow White, said the girl with a shy smile. Good, she isn't scared of me, or convinced that I'm a thief. Great, let's get going. Ven began walking, leading Snow White by the hand. Terra put away his keyblade after the fight in the flowery meadow, taking a moment to catch his breath. He'd completely lost track of Snow White while dealing with the Unversed, but she had said that she didn't know anything about Master Xehanort. That meant the only lead he had on this world was that mirror. Terra set off toward the castle. Still, what was the deal with these princesses of heart anyway? What exactly was a heart full of light? Terra was sensitive to light himself, but he'd never sensed it filling his own heart. Why was that? He lacked the strength to suppress his darkness. But then there was Master Xehanort's advice to just channel it. There was no denying its presence within Terra, but couldn't that be said of everyone? Wasn't it okay as long as the darkness didn't take over? His doubts were rising again, and he wanted to pose the questions to Master Xehanort. Terra passed through the courtyard and the dungeon to reach the mirror's chamber again. The queen was standing facing the mirror. How dare you return here, you blundering fool! She turned back toward Terra, brimming with anger. What are you talking about? I ordered you to bring me Snow White's heart. The queen cut straight to the point. The mirror must keep her apprised of what was going on even far away. A request I chose to ignore. You know, you claim to be radiant, but all I see are shadows of jealousy hanging thick on your heart, Terra declared. Right, and a heart must never sink into the darkness. You will pay for such insolence. The queen trembled with rage as she shouted. Magic mirror upon the wall, consume this fool once and for all. Terra readied his keyblade. However, the magic mirror said, Alas, my liege, that I cannot do. I have no power, save answers true. You dare defy your queen? The queen shook with even greater ire, and an ominous red aura of negativity began to enshroud her. Was that the power of darkness? When her wrath had reached its boiling point, the queen took a flask containing a green chemical from a table and hurled it at the mirror. The flask shattered, and the green chemical dripped down onto the magic mirror. The mask within groaned. Urgh. As the groan turned into a roar, the powerful light shone forth from the mirror. What? Disoriented for a moment, Terra was sucked into the mirror. Within was an abyssal space lined with eerie replicas of the mask. Consumed by a dark heart, the magic mirrors moved to attack Terra. The rows seemed endless, like he was standing between two mirrors facing each other. But the real one had to be somewhere. Taking down the fakes, Terra reached one mask whose expression was unlike the others, and swung his keyblade down through it. The mask turned out to be the real one, and just like that, the battle was over. The mask let loose a cry, and Terra was cast out of the mirror with a flash. "How did you escape?" the queen cried with a gasp. The magic mirror had already returned to normal. "Now you will ask the mirror, where can I find Master Xehanort?" Terra prompted the queen as he approached her with keyblade in hand. Her eyes still downcast in vexation, the queen posed the question to the mirror. "Magic mirror, instruct this knave, provide the answers he doth crave." The mask within was silent for a moment, then stated, "Beyond both light and dark he dwells, where war was waged upon the fells." "That all?" Terra pressed, but it was in vain, as the mask kept its silence. "Thanks, you've been a big help." With parting words to the mirror and the queen, Terra put away his keyblade and walked off. If Master Xehanort wasn't here, then he had no further business on this world. He had met Snow White, filled with light, and a queen steeped in darkness, and a mirror that spoke the truth. Which one would the mirror say he resembled more closely? Musing to himself, Terra put this world behind him. Having made it through the forest with Snow White and Tell, Ven reached the safety of the cottage. The door was unlocked, allowing them to enter without any trouble. All the little necessities within were a bit on the small side, suggesting this really was where the dwarfs called home. "I'm pretty sure you'll be safe here, but sit tight while I look around." "Thank you. I'm ever so tired." "Get some rest," he advised her, then stepped outside. The dwarfs had yet to return. They'd yell at him even more and call him a thief again if they knew he'd snuck in uninvited. But there wasn't anywhere else to keep Snow White out of harm's way. Ven circled the cabin, deciding that it might be a problem if they found him alone, but maybe things would be different with Snow White here too. He didn't find any unversed, just a small stream with patches of flowers blooming along the banks behind the cottage. Relieved, Ven went back inside. "The coast is clear, not a monster in sight." "Huh?" Snow White was sitting on the floor, and around her were those 7 dwarfs. "Couldn't stay away, could ya? And who invited you in, you rotten thief?" Grumpy snarled. "Oh no, he's not a thief. He rescued me." Snow White defended Ven, but the dwarf's suspicions wouldn't be so easily dispelled. "You mustn't be fooled. You mustn't be fooled by him, princess," Doc cautioned. "Just go on and get." Grumpy was raising even more of a ruckus. "Please don't send him away. You see, he helped me when I was lost and oh so very frightened." Snow White pleaded, lowering her gaze. Was she that frightened? Concerned, Ven asked her, "What happened?" "Well, I was picking flowers by the wood, and there was a stranger there. He had a sword, but it was like a key. And then these monsters came." Snow White answered, gazing up at Ven. "A sword shaped like a key. Terra!" Ven said to himself. "You mean the stranger saw ya and set his horde of evil demons after ya?" Doc said with a sidelong glance at Ven. "Terra would never do that." Ven denied the idea vehemently. "Oh, of course. I'm sure he wouldn't. Not if he's someone who is your friend." With the dwarfs around her, Snow White seemed a bit uneasy. "Princess, you trustn't be so trusting," Doc cried out, and Snow White looked at Ven sadly. "He's a lion, mark my words." It didn't seem like words were going to get the dwarfs to believe him. "I'll prove it!" Ven dashed from the cottage. If the man Snow White mentioned was Terra, Ven might be able to meet up with them. As when he saved Snow White earlier, the gloomy forest was teeming with unversed. "Back off!" Ven was worried he might miss Terra if he didn't hurry. He cut through the unversed desperately, not wanting to waste any time. Rushing out of the forest, he came to the field with its abundant flowers. "Terra!" he shouted, forgetting to dismiss his keyblade. No response. He ran further into the field, searching. Unfortunately, there was no trace of Terra. Ah, Ven stopped and lowered his head. I wanted to find him. Just then, he spotted something by his feet. Huh? A red apple had rolled over to him. Ven picked it up and looked around. A short ways off, an old woman was hobbling along with a basket of apples. Excuse me, ma'am. You dropped this. Ven hurried up to the old woman and handed her the apple. Oh, I thank you, my pet. To tell the truth, I really don't know what I would have done without that. She took the apple with a creepy laugh, but she started when she saw what Ven had in his other hand. Haven't I seen that sword before? Terra has one. You know Terra? Ven inquired. While there was no guaranteeing that she knew Ven's friend just from seeing a Keyblade before, he had to ask. The old woman's answer was the last thing he expected to hear, though. Oh, yes. That ruffian pointed one of those at me, asking about some Xehanort. My poor heart nearly stopped. Terra threatened an elderly woman? No way. He'd never do that. Still, Snow White had said that she was attacked by unknown monsters after encountering a man with something like a key. That doesn't sound right at all. Reassuring himself that her story couldn't be right, Ven asked, Ma'am, where did Terra go? I'm sure I have no idea. Must you all menace a poor granny so? The old woman's body trembled in fear. What? No, I was just... I'd never do that, and neither would Terra. But if what everyone on this world is saying is true, why am I even thinking about this? Watching the old woman walk off toward the forest with her big basket, Ven let out a low sigh. He looked toward the sky. Terra, what did you do? Terra probably wasn't on this world anymore. Ven had to go to another and ask after him. Ven opened the lanes between in search of a new world. Good. Let those doubts take over. Ven muttered as he watched Ven set off once more from a distance. The greater Ven's doubts grew, the more turmoil his heart would be in, and the more he would waver. That was the plan, or part of it anyway. Vanitas began walking toward the forest, and he saw the old woman, the transformed queen, step out of the trees. Now, let's hope she plays her part too. Vanitas smirked, and the dim forest stirred as Unversed appeared around him. Summoning a corridor of darkness, Vanitas vanished. Snow White timidly accepted the red apple offered by the old woman and took a bite. As a mysterious smile appeared on her guest's wrinkled lips, Snow White let out a small cry and collapsed on the floor. Now I'll be the fairest in the land! The old woman crowed with laughter. She was actually the queen, Snow White's stepmother. Still cackling, she left the house. A storm was brewing outside the home of the dwarfs. Flashes of lightning illuminated the sky. It's the witch! Grumpy shouted from atop a deer, and the queen fled in a panic. The dwarfs couldn't pursue if she returned to the castle. She hurried through the gloom of the forest, climbing a precipice. She had to escape. But the dwarfs were dogged pursuers. Reaching the top of the cliff, the queen looked down upon the dwarfs, and soon after, she met her fate. But Snow White would awaken no more. Unable to bear the thought of Snow White and her remarkable beauty buried beneath the earth, even in death, the dwarfs placed her in a casket of glass and gold, and prayed by her side each day. It was some time later that Aqua arrived in the forest. Outside a small cottage in the trees, the dwarfs hung their heads, hats removed. In front of them was a large glass box of some sort. What has happened here? She asked. The dwarfs raised their heads in turn. Poor Snow White. The dwarf in glasses, Doc, sighed, and then lowered his gaze from the glass box. What could possibly be inside it? Aqua knelt down and peered inside. Within was a beautiful girl with red lips, ebony hair, and white skin, asleep and surrounded by flowers. This box was a casket. Lowering her eyes, Aqua turned back to the dwarfs. She was just as sweet as could be. She sang us purty songs and made us smile. She told us wonderful stories about falling in love and the prince she'd met. And when we went to work, she gave us all a kiss.
She was so full of kindness. Why, she made better folk of all of us."
The dwarfs each voiced their memories, so this girl was called Snow White. From what you've said, she must have been very loved. But how did this happen to her? She inquired. The dwarfs were so despondent that she wanted to help them any way she could. What's more, as far as she could tell, Snow White didn't appear to be dead inside her coffin.
"A wicked queen was horribly jealous of our dear Snow White's beauty, so she used her evil magic to change into an old hag, and then she gave Snow White a poisoned apple,"
Doc explained, no longer able to hold back his sobs.
"And by the time we got here, well, it was just too late. We found the princess as still as can be. Nothing we could do would wake her."
The fat dwarf, Happy, sniffled. "Isn't there some way we can help her?" Aqua asked. The dwarfs looked at one another.
"Well, not unless someone braves the castle,"
Happy explained as the dwarfs lowered their heads again.
"All you fools can stay here doing nothin', but I'm not afeard of goin', not even to that witch's lair,"
Grumpy shouted, ready to march on the castle then and there.
"You'll never make it. The castle's supposed to be guarded by magic and crawling with monsters."
Doc stopped him.
"A horde of monsters might be too much for them. In that case, maybe I should go."
Aqua stood up beside the casket. "All right, then I'll go."
"You will?"
Bashful said hesitantly. "I will. Leave it to me."
"Well, all right, my dear. We'll be much obliged,"
Doc replied, then began to sob again. "Could you point me toward the castle?"
"It's just beyond this forest,"
Happy answered. "Okay." Nodding firmly to Happy, Aqua went on her way. She just couldn't ignore anyone in distress. The forest beyond the cottage was sinister and rotten with unversed. "What is this?" Aqua whispered, clearing out the unversed. There were so many of them, even in the first world she visited. Could the troubles of this world have something to do with Snow White's slumber? As Aqua wondered what she would have to do to awaken the princess from eternal sleep, her thoughts led back to a certain memory. It was from several years ago. Ven had collapsed soon after arriving at the land of departure, and he'd been unconscious ever since. "Ventus, why won't you wake up?" she had asked Ven as he lay asleep in bed. Snow White's slumbering face reminded her of his. She had thought Ven might never awaken back then, too. Everything would be fine, though. Snow White would wake up. Aqua passed through the flowery field and reached the castle. A menacing atmosphere permeated it as well. She spotted the courtyard a comely young man, dressed in white clothes and a red cape. He seemed very out of place in a forbidden castle. "Is something wrong?" Aqua addressed the young man.
"This castle, it's different somehow, and I can't find the princess or hear her beautiful voice. Was it all a dream?"
The youth responded in a pleasant voice, befitting his handsome appearance. "Wait, you mean you know Snow White?"
"Oh yes, we met once. It was a song that drew us together. Has something happened to the princess?"
the young man asked Aqua, his fine brows drawn together. "Yes, I'm afraid so. The wicked queen tricked her into eating a poisoned apple."
"I must go to her. Where is she?"
His face paled at her story, no doubt about it. He was in love with Snow White. Actually, one of the dwarfs had said something to that effect. "In the woods, guarded by 7 kind dwarfs."
"I will find her. Perhaps there is a way I can help."
Bowing sharply, the young man ran off. "I have to do what I can." Aqua continued farther into the castle, which was infested with unversed. Perhaps they had been summoned by the darkness of the queen the dwarfs had mentioned. She fought her way through an underground dungeon and found a room with a large mirror in it. The place felt strange. Something's not right. Aqua walked up to the looking glass in the back of the room. The moment she did, the magic mirror gave off a flash of light and drew her inside. What? She was in a realm of blackest darkness, where several masks hovered around her. They encircled her, then went on the offensive. Are these the unversed? Bringing up her keyblade, Aqua cut away through the masks. It's no use. There's just too many. The masks came after her in an endless succession. She was getting worn down. Trying to defeat them all was futile. And as Aqua searched for some way out, she noticed one was a different expression from the others. So that was the real one. When the mask was destroyed, light enveloped Aqua's body, and she found herself back in the room from before. What's going on? She muttered as the light faded from the mirror before her.
The queen is gone, my service done. Adieu, adieu, O victorious one,
declared the mask within the mirror. It vanished, and as it did, the evil presence enshrouding the castle lessened. So darkness attracted more darkness. All the same, Aqua didn't know how to revive Snow White. She left the castle behind her and headed back to the dwarfs. The young man gazed intently into Snow White's face. Around him, the dwarfs were weeping. In the end, they had failed to help her. As Aqua stepped closer, he placed his lips to Snow White's. Before the despondent youth, Snow White stirred, then opened her eyes. "Princess!" Aqua cried. Stretching slowly, Snow White sat up and extended her hand to the young man. The dwarfs embraced one another in joy as the young man swept Snow White up in his arms. "That's so sweet. It's just like a miracle," Aqua whispered with a smile. Ultimately, she couldn't do anything to help. And yet, Snow White woke up all the same, just like back then when Ven awoke. Ven had been asleep for so long, and then he suddenly regained consciousness, still dazed, but awake at least. Snow White gave each one of the overjoyed dwarfs a kiss on the face, and then she and the young man walked off hand in hand. The dwarfs cheered them, at once both happy and the tiniest bit sad. Snow White and the prince had set off on a journey. Awakening was the first step to a new adventure. Maybe a journey was waiting for Ven too, she mused. Aqua turned away from the celebrating dwarfs and quietly took her leave of this world.